Hi golfers, Rob Cheney here from GOLFTEC Singapore. Happy New Year to everybody. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday period and were able to enjoy it despite some slight differences to the norm. And I wish every single one of you watching a happy, healthy and successful new year, especially where your golf game is concerned. And to that extent, we're going to start the year with a simple tip, but one that I feel can really elevate your game to another level. It's so simple, it barely gets discussed. But I'm going to expand on the topic of foot flare or foot position at setup. So foot flare at setup, what are we discussing? We're really discussing how far turn sort of inwards or outwards you have your feet. We can talk about them independently. I think generally speaking the most common acceptance is that the front foot should be turned out slightly and the back foot should be turned in much more straight. At least that's what I hear and see very often. I think that was because of Hogan's book, The 5 Fundamentals. He discussed the right foot and how to have it turned in. And back in those days, there was a lot of discussion about bracing into that trail side, bracing into that trail leg, even that trail knee, and keeping it flexed. We're now better educated than that. We now know that's not really what the good players are doing. They're extending that trail leg. So foot flare at setup, I'm going to talk about both feet being turned out as a standard about a similar amount. Okay, you might have certain individuals that require one foot to be turned out more than the other, but as a starting point I would have both my feet turned out, and I'm going to go for about 20 to 30 degrees as a standard starting point. Why do I preach this? Why do I think it's important? Well, how you position your feet and how much you turn them in or out affects your hip motion. It's really, foot flare is internal or external hip rotation. So how you position your feet affects how much you can turn. And to that extent, I see golfers benefiting hugely in terms of being able to swing longer, making a bigger turn or bigger backswing, which helps them to create more power by having their feet turned out. So if we start with what I'm not such a fan of, let's start with feet straight. Why don't I like that? Because I see in general terms on the mat, most people when they come to swing, they have a resistance or a restriction in how much they can move their hip, their trail hip here. And as they swing back, they would tend to start to sway more on the backswing. They tend to start to sway, and as they reach sort of halfway back on their backswing, they're limiting their range of motion, so they can't really get this club or these hands to go far enough around them. Then they start lifting their arms, flexing their arms. We've discussed that on many occasions about how flexing the arms is the beginning of the conflicting and breaking down of the radius, so we don't want the arms to break. So having the feet turned in reduces their ability to get the hip to go back and deep, and therefore it restricts their turn with their torso and their shoulders, and it limits the ability of the golfer to get their hands far enough around them. And once you're here in this limited turn position with the hand depth limited, it hasn't made its way far enough around, you're then very susceptible to swinging down much steeper, opening the turns too quickly, swinging across the ball and slicing. So asking a golfer to turn their feet out, and in this example where we're discussing right now, the trail foot, that is to allow this right hip to have more depth to it going back. That helps a golfer to continue moving their hand path around them sufficiently. They can keep the hands moving around. Also helps me to make a bigger turn with both my hips and my shoulders. And I do so without creating any stress on the joint. I'm not encouraging an injury or being susceptible to injury. I think trying to brace into that right knee is something that was taught for many, many years, still is in small fractions of the golf teaching community, but I think for the most part now people accept that the knee should be changing flex and the trail knee should be losing flex. So turning the foot out and allowing the right leg to straighten and the hip to move back is reducing the stress on the joints, and it's therefore making you less liable to any injuries. And moving forward from here, if I've made a bigger turn with more depth and got my hand path more around me, as I swing down, I'm more likely to have the club moving down on a more appropriate arc or path. The other thing by having the foot turned out is it generally slows down, discourages my right knee, my right hip from kicking in too early and early extending. Even overturning or increasing the opening rates of your body can be something that happens when the foot's too turned in, because you're starting from a position where you haven't really created that depth. So having the foot turned in is going to encourage more of the over the top. Having the foot turned out as you start down keeps the right hip back, keeps the right knee back slightly longer, and allows you to approach from a more neutral or even slightly inside path. And then moving to the front foot, follow through. Primarily, this is why I think this has already been accepted as being kind of the norm, having a little bit of flair in the front foot, is because it helps with the transition of the weight into the finish. So as I'm transitioning and moving forward, my right foot's turned out, makes it easier for me to move into that position. As I said before, the position of this foot really relates to the amount of internal hip rotation that you have. So by having a bit more of foot flair, you're able to keep turning and moving into that finish without watching a lot of golfers where their front foot, from a very neutral position at least, will very often start to spin out and they'll lose their footing, potentially even losing their balance. The amount you turn this front foot out can vary from player to player, because I've already said it's really linked to how much internal hip rotation you have. That's why you'll often see younger players, junior golfers in particular, who have these feet turned very, very straight, and they're still able to make these wonderful swings with these free-flowing follow-throughs without any, seemingly any issues with their body. But of course, you don't know what's happening at that age. You could certainly make yourself more likely to have a longer-term injury, and because their bodies are softer and more supple, they're still able to achieve a range of motion, but you're really putting a lot of stress on that joint, the ankle, the knee, the hip, if you turn it straight forwards. In a game like golf, which is a rotational sport, having your feet turned forwards isn't setting you up for success. If this is news to you, great. I'm pleased you're watching the video and it's something that might get you thinking. If you're not sure about whether this is for you, just go ahead and stand up now, wherever you are listening to this or watching this video. Just take a stance, turn your feet straight forwards, and just make a swing. Even if you haven't got a golf club with you, just make a swing, back swing at least. If you want to try and follow through, you can as well. And just notice how that feels. And then turn your feet out 30 degrees, both of them, back foot, front foot. Do the same thing again, even if you haven't got a club. Now make that same motion, swing back and swing through, and ask yourself which one feels more comfortable. Ultimately, you'll be the judge of which one feels more or less restrictive. So go ahead and give that a try. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I want to hear from you. If you already do this, you find it useful. If it's new to you and you've never heard of this before, give it a shot. Let me know what you think. And if you're someone who went from having your feet turned very straight to turning them out, let me know if you saw the benefits of greater turn, more distance, and reducing slices, improving draws. Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found the video enjoyable, informative, and most of all, useful. As I mentioned in the video, get yourself, wherever you're standing right now, stand right up, put your feet on the ground, turn your toes in, and try to make some sort of golf swing and rotation. And then try again with your feet turned out and do the same thing. You can do this even if you're at home right now. And just to ask yourself which one feels easier, which one feels better. And the vast majority of the time, in fact, I don't think I've ever had anybody tell me that keeping their toes or their feet turned straight in or pinned in is easier. Every single person I've ever asked to do that describes the sensation of having their feet turned out as being much easier to do. So there's a great reason for you to certainly try it. And next time you're hitting balls, give it a go. Guys, take care. I hope everyone's doing well out there. Do stay safe. I know the world's a funny place right now, but hopefully it won't be too long before we're back to some sort of normality. If you would like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you don't already, please do subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to join me on my other social media channels, I'd be happy to see you over there. Until next time, take care, stay safe. I'll see you soon.